Hello and welcome back to the Odds Now YouTube channel for the latest edition of our Betting Breakdown podcast, your weekly pod for all things sports betting. Once again in the hot seat, it's me, Matt Hill, and I'm going to be joined by my two regular contributors, Adam Smido Smith from Races Now and our football tipster and trader, Felix Morson-Pate, who are going to mark your cards in their respective disciplines. Well, it feels like there's always something big going on in the world of flat racing at the moment, and Adam Smido Smith is once again on hand to give us the lowdown on the week ahead, in a week that features the York Dante meeting, Newbury's Lockinge, and we have a little look ahead to the Derby and the Oaks, as well as recapping Lingfield Trials Day and Chester's May meeting. Domestic football is just starting to wind down to its seasonal conclusion, and that means we've got colossal games left, right and centre. We've got cup finals, playoffs and plenty more. Felix Morson-Pate, as always, is on hand to join me and chat us through things such as the Premier League relegation battle, the EFL playoffs and a look at a thrilling title race over in Scotland. And as always with your other sport roundup, it's me, Matt Hill. I'm going to be taking a quick look at the golfing major this week, the PGA Championship, and also a quick nod to the Pro Tour darts action that's been going on in the background this week. Well, if you like a bit of betting chat, this is the podcast for you. If you're a returning viewer, it's great to have you back. And if you're a first-time listener, please do consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you can give us a thumb up if you enjoy this week's pod, we'd really appreciate it. Let's get into the action. Well, let's start this week with horse racing, where there really is no better man to get us up to speed on the action on the flat than Adam Smith. If you're not already subscribed to our sister channel, Races Now, it is the best place on YouTube for free horse racing tips and insights from Adam and that man SD. So make sure you head on over there right after this pod and hit subscribe. Let's see what Adam had to say about the week ahead. Once again, joining us to talk all things racing is none other than Races Now's Adam Smido Smith. And Smid, great to have you on again. Busy week last week. Obviously, we had the classics that we talked about last week with the 2,000 and 1,000 guineas, and we were looking ahead to Trials Day at Chester and a good set of handicaps at Ascot. Before we look ahead to the week ahead, anything you want to reflect on from last weekend? Any performances that took your eye? How was the week for you from a punting perspective?
I did okay at Chester, actually, through by my standards. Don't usually pay too much attention to Chester through the season, but it must be said that meeting they have does have a genuine impact on the classics, the Oaks, the Derby. We saw Benvenuto Cellini, and he's now top of the Derby market. He won at odds on. There was a couple of non-runners, controversially. He won at odds on 2-9, I think he was, at Chester. Then the next day, Aidan O'Brien won the other Chester Derby trial with Constitution River, again 2-9. So we might not have learnt a lot about those on the tracks, other than that they were alive and well and were beating average horses. But yeah, that certainly focused minds on the Derby. Similar-ish story at Lingfield as well, whereby their Derby and Oaks trials looked poor renewals in terms of the ratings of those horses that were in there. But nonetheless, focused minds and did have an impact on the market. A couple of takeouts, I would say, is that the vibes seem to suggest that Constitution River was more impressive than Benvenuto Cellini, even though Constitution's 7-1 for the Derby, Benvenuto's 5-2. I don't know if I subscribe to that really and getting carried away. Like I say, I don't think we learnt a lot. They were both 2-9. The one I did take out from last week in the fillies division was Amelia Earhart, who I think won really well. She wasn't the favourite for the Cheshire Oaks, a race won by the likes of Enable before, etc. I thought she was impressive. She beat what was the current favourite at the time, I Am The One, beat her pretty easily. I thought she was impressive. She's the rightful favourite for the Oaks market, for the Oaks at Epsom in a few weeks. So it's a long way of saying that you can currently back the 5-2 Derby favourite Benvenuto Cellini or the 5-2 Oaks favourite Amelia Earhart. I would definitely prefer to be with Amelia Earhart if I had to choose between those two favourites. I think she's a strong favourite. I think Benvenuto is, at the moment, a weak favourite.
Okay, well, still a little while to go until those particular engagements. I'm sure Smid will be having a good look at them over on oddsnow.com as well. Do head over to oddsnow.com, where we have regular racing columns and insight, if that is your kind of thing, included from the man across me on the screen here, who has taken a look at a few races for us in recent times, including the Lockinge, which is one that is on our radar for this weekend. We've also got York's Dante meeting, which is 3 days of great action from the Knavesmire. So Don't know whether you want to take Newbury or York first mid, but get us our card marked for this week, please.
Yeah, so the Lockinge is the first older horses Group 1 this year. We've had the Guineas, both for male and female, 3-year-olds a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so Lockinge this Saturday, slightly earlier in the day than what you would expect due to the FA Cup final. I think it's at 2:25 on Saturday. A really good card at Newbury. What I would say is, outside of the festival fixtures like a Royal Ascot, like a York Ebor, like a Glorious Goodwood, I think this single day of racing from Newbury on Saturday is really right up there. It's got a good mixture of the Group 1. You've got a couple of handicaps in there as well. Then you've got listed and a couple of listed races at sprint level and one for fillies as well. So I think it's a really, really good day's racing. Fair play to Newbury. They've increased the prize money. The Lockinge, I wrote it's the column's already live on oddsnow.com. I've tipped 2 horses. Zeus Olympios at 7-2. I think that price is under pressure. Might have even gone by the time you hear this. There's a favourite at the top of the market at the moment, Damasus. Never ran over a mile ever, but yeah, he's currently favourite for the Lockinge, a straight mile at Newbury. So I was keen to take him on. I thought he won, visually looked impressive when winning last time, the Earl of Sefton over 9 furlongs at Newmarket. But I think that he is worth taking on. The second favourite at the moment, or up there, is Notable Speech. And I think he's worth taking on in his older age as well. So yeah, I've landed on Zeus Olympios. He ran in that big race that we previewed a couple of weeks ago on this very show on the Friday, the Sandown Mile. The 2 that finished in front of Zeus Olympios that day, Field of Gold and Opera Ballo, do not run in the Lockinge, whereas a month ago you probably would have expected them to be in the Lockinge. They are going elsewhere. Field of Gold's injured. Opera Ballo is going to France. So Zeus Olympios, I spent most of the weekend, as I've said in my article, trying to decide, was Zeus Olympios disappointing in that race at Sandown, given that he lost his unbeaten record, could only finish 3rd, or was it a race full of promise and a horse that's going to come onto the run? I've sided with the latter. I think he is going to come on for the run, and I think he should be favourite for this Lockinge. And I think by the weekend, he probably will be favourite. At the Dante meeting, 3 days there, keeping my powder dry a little bit this week at the York Pineman. There's a lot of big field handicaps as you get at York every single meeting, and they play a bit of a merry-go-round, especially the 5-6 furlong handicaps, who may win on this day. So I think they're worth avoiding, but I do think that the Dante is going to be pretty informative. The Dante is the final trial for the Derby, and it's the closest in number of days to the Derby. Aidan O'Brien doesn't like how close it is, and given that he dominates the Derby markets and the Derby itself every year, or most years, and we should probably take note of that. He'll have a couple of runners, but they certainly won't be at the top draw of Ballydoyle Derby contenders. So the Dante usually produces the best British hope for the Derby that takes place 2.5 weeks later. So be keeping an eye on that, Dante. It will be an interesting race. There'll be no bets in there for me, but yeah, well worth watching. And one race for Wednesday, if you're watching this in time, that I would put out there. It used to be called the Duke of York Stakes, and for obvious reasons, it's been changed name to the Minster Stakes. This is a 6 furlong Group 2. I think this is a really good race. Again, it might be a powder dry race, but there is a lot of Group 1 horses turning up in this Group 2 race. It's over 6 furlong sprint at York. We've got Time for Sandals, Group 1 winner. Kinda Blue, Group 1 winner. Big Mojo, Group 1 winner. American Affair, Group 1 winner, has not ran for over 300 days because he was injured after Royal Ascot last year. I really like him. It's probably a horse that needs 5 furlongs in time, so he's just making his comeback here. No bets, but I'll certainly be keeping an eye on that Minster Stakes. That's at York on Wednesday at 3:30.
Okay, well, given this pod goes out on a Wednesday, it may have already ran, but I'm sure we'll be keeping a keen eye on that. And always nice to see the racing return to York. Feels like summer when York are racing. And I've always found it a tricky punting track, to be honest, York. But it's always good quality racing, nevertheless. So that is the weekend then. Anything else from the weekend to note, or is that the bulk of your attention, sir?
Yeah, definitely concentrating on the Lockinge. One thing that I would mention is for regular readers of my column on races now. Earlier in the year, I looked at the specials markets. It was way back in January. You could get 6-1 for Aidan O'Brien to train the winner of the Derby and the Oaks. I'm on that. I put it up on the column, and I did say at the time that it was only available with one supplier. It's not on the official Races Now P&L, but certainly pointed you in that direction, and I have backed it. And yes, I'm really confident about that, given what's happened in the trials, and like I say, Aidan dominating the markets. Also in that column, I gave a bit of a nod to that bet plus the Coronation Cup winner. So the 3 Group 1s at Epsom in 3 weeks' time. Aidan O'Brien to win them all 20-1. So I'm on that as well. So fingers crossed that this week on oddsnow.com and on Races Now, I'll be putting an anti-post video up for the Derby, the Oaks, and might do the Coronation as well. So keep an eye on. But yeah, all the big Group 1 races previewed on Races Now as usual.
Brilliant. Well, lots and lots of racing content to come. Exciting weekend ahead as well. If you want to get all the best racing insight and tips ahead of the action, head over to Races Now, where you see Smido along with his usual counterpart SD, and they'll take you through everything in granular detail with a little bit of off-topic chat as well thrown in there for good measure as usual. But yeah, Smid, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Cheers, will do. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Well, top stuff as always from Smid. And if you like reading horse racing content, why not head over to oddsnow.com? The man himself has actually penned a couple of columns for us this week. One looking ahead to the rebranded Coronation Cup in his first anti-post look, and another diving into the Lockinge in a bit more depth. So that's oddsnow.com if you want to read those columns. The links will be in the description of this video. Well, next it's time for football, and I was delighted to be joined once again by Felix Morson-Pate, our regular football tipster and trader here at Odds Now. And he spoke to me about a thrilling title race in Scotland where Hearts and Celtic are going down to the wire. We also touched on the Premier League relegation battle and title races, and a bit of EFL playoff chat, including whether there could be a remarkable move in the Championship playoff market with an eliminated team being reinstated. Well, once again, on hand to get us up to speed with all things football is Felix Morson-Pate, our resident football contributor and trader in the industry. Felix, domestic season very much winding down now, so all leagues are kind of either at their final or penultimate set of fixtures. The European finals are all set, so it definitely feels like, for me, I'm starting to get one eye towards the World Cup now, but we've still got some big things to settle in domestic football. I thought that this week it would be great to start with this SPL title race, which I think has captured the imagination of a lot of neutrals who probably wouldn't care that much about the Scottish Premier League in a standard season. But because of this fantastic campaign from Hearts, we have things going right to the wire. And I think everyone is of a football disposition will be watching on Saturday when Hearts play Celtic. But there's a big set of fixtures tonight, isn't there, as well? And it's going to have a big bearing on where the title ends up going.
They've been brilliant, I think, for the neutrals. I think this is the thing with all sport. When you get a team or a couple of teams that dominate, all you want to see is some fresh blood coming in and winning. We see it. We've seen it in tennis. We see it now in darts. So, yeah, it's great to see. And obviously, there's the Tony Bloom factor as well. Given how well Brighton are doing as well, they could still sneak into the Champions League. Imagine if he had 2 clubs in the Champions League. What a story that would be. It's going to be absolutely massive tonight. They play Falkirk, who are bottom of the top 6 with the way they do the split. Falkirk have got nothing to play for. They're basically, if they win both their games and Hibs slip up, then they could sneak into 5th. But realistically, tonight, we've seen Hearts kind of like limp over the line in the kind of games that we see tonight. They did it against Hibs when they were playing. I think the Hibs go down to 9. And then, they scraped a draw on Motherwell last time out. But get a win tonight, and they know that avoiding defeat on the final day is the title's theirs then. And they've done very well in the league fixtures against Celtic up to this point. So I think they'll be quietly confident, but I think they'll actually feel more pressure on tonight than Saturday.
Yeah, so the way it works, or what we're facing here is basically Hearts and Celtic are playing each other on the last day at Celtic Park, and effectively whatever happens in tonight's fixtures, that will still be a title-defining game. But Hearts currently have a 1-point lead over Celtic, who are on 76 points. And as Felix says, Celtic go to Motherwell, who, to be fair, Felix, have been a really good side themselves this season. We're even half in the title picture for a little period. I mean, people were talking about them as, disruptors.
Scorer as well. Maswanise.
They're clear 4th. So fantastic season for them. Technically, the title could be won tonight if Hearts beat Falkirk and Motherwell can pull something off against Celtic. But it looks, for all intents and purposes, like we're going to this last day. Because that is the case, and because Celtic will be at home on the last day, they are actually 1.7 best price to win the SPL. and Hearts out at 5-4. Do you think that the pendulum has swung? Do you think this is now in Celtic's hands?
No, I don't
No?
think so. I know they've been there and done it many, many times over the past 15 years, but let's be frank, both of the Old Firm sides have been pretty crap this year. This has not been a vintage year for them. I think both, whatever happens, whether Celtic win the league or not, I think they will go away and really assess kind of why this has been such a poor season for them. I thought they were pretty poor in Europe as well, to be honest. So I think the motivation really is with Hearts to break this up. I know it's at Celtic Park, but whatever travelling support Hearts take are going to be absolutely raucous. I think Celtic will turn up expecting to win, and I think that could play against them. I know, like I say, I know it's a team of winners, but I don't think there's the right mindset with this Celtic side. And I think we've seen that in previous games this season against Hearts, kind of turning up, thinking it's just another game that's not against Rangers, and Hearts have been really up for it. And having Shankland back is obviously a massive boost for Hearts as well. Braga's still playing well. So I'd make it a genuine pick-em, honestly.
Yeah, and looking forward to seeing how that pans out. Hearts are 4-9 to beat Falkirk tonight, and Celtic are 1.7, 7-10 to beat Motherwell. So it looks like we'll go to the last day with a point in between, and that's what everybody wants, isn't it? Well, in terms of the Premier League, Felix, it looks like we had a really pivotal game on Sunday at both ends of the table, potentially. I'm sure everybody is well up to speed with the VAR debate that's raged on after West Ham Arsenal and the disallowed equaliser for West Ham. I don't want to go off on a tangent with that because we could be here all day talking about that one, and everyone's got their opinions. I felt it was harsh, to say the least, for West Ham. But anyway, that's the situation that we present ourselves with. Arsenal now massive favs to win the league, having overcame that hurdle just about. And the relegation battle, I thought, was going to be looking decisive. However, Spurs unable to beat Leeds on Monday night, so it remains very finely poised with a couple of games to go. Felix, how do you see that relegation battle standing now? West Ham still clear favourites to go down, but I wouldn't say the nail is in the coffin just yet.
No, I wouldn't, but I think there's been a marked improvement since De Zerbi came into Spurs, and I think they'll get at least 1 point from the remaining two fixtures, if not three, and I think one could still be enough. I'm not sure I see West Ham winning both their final games, and I think that's what they're going to have to do if they want to stay up. I'm not sure if you've got the fixtures there. I know Spurs host Everton on final day, which we're basically going to have nothing to play for other than potentially a top half finish.
I think, don't quote me, I'll check us now. I think West Ham go to Newcastle next.
Yeah, so that's
Newcastle on Sunday, and then
it's
they
a
have
winnable
Leeds
game
on the last day.
Yeah, so it's two winnable games, but there's a difference between winnable games and winning games when you're in the position that West Ham and Spurs are in. And I don't think Leeds will be completely on the beach on that final day. I think they'll want to give a good send off to the fans. They've stayed up in the first year back, promoted. I think Farker, beg your pardon, has had a point to prove by managing to keep them up as well. So I wouldn't be backing West Ham at 4s on or whatever, but yeah, it's very much a likelihood I think that they go down, but I'm not sure. Whatever happens, it's been a disastrous season for Spurs, hasn't it? And I think they've got the experience in that side to drag them over the line, but go a goal down early in the next fixture, and who knows?
I think you make a good point about Everton on the final day for Spurs, because it's looked for a long time like Everton would be in the European hunt until the final day, but unfortunately that dream has died for the likes of yourself, and it looks like a nothing trip to London for them, which you would think is ideal for Spurs. But I guess for West Ham, let's hope that they can take it to the final day with Spurs away at Chelsea, who you'd think would, despite the dreadful form, would try and lift their game to try and relegate Spurs.
Oh, I think that's massive, yeah.
Yeah, and West Ham at Newcastle, who've struggled by and large over the last few months. But it could well go to the last day once again as a neutral. We just want it to go to the last day, don't we? We just want to see panicking fans pan to in the stands, ideally. Well, we're not going to touch on the European finals too much this week, Felix, because obviously we'll cover them in future weeks. But we have English teams in all three of the European finals this year, and two of them are very strong favourites to win theirs. I believe Villa were 4-11 to win the Europa League. Now Palace about 2's on for the Conference League. So I think it is Villa first a week today, Palace a week after, and then Arsenal PSG on the following Saturday. Do you think it's realistic that we could have 3 English winners? I know we've touched on the Champions League a little bit again, but like we make PSG favourites there. We're not totally against Arsenal, and the other two look to have great chances.
Yeah, I think it's a very realistic possibility, and again, it shows the chasm of both the financial and the footballing power that the Premier League has over the rest of Europe. It's no bad place to be in as someone who's got out each way outright bets on Freiburg and Vallecano, so I can just kind of sit back and watch and maybe hedge a little bit on the English sides. But I think it's a massive opportunity for Villa and Palace to win European silverware. For Villa, it's the first time in 45 years. Palace will be the first ever. It's the first ever proper run in Europe. That's what I love the Conference League for, because whether it's Palace or Vallecano that win, that's going to be first ever major European silverware. It's both of the clubs only their second time ever in Europe, so it's a fantastic story. And I think it's watching those finals from the likes of Bournemouth, Brighton, Brentford fans. They're going to be so excited to see potentially their teams doing a similar thing next year. And I get we don't want to see English dominance repeated over and over again, but for fans of those smaller clubs, all of whom were in the Championship or lower 10 years ago, the dream is very real, isn't it? And I think that's the beauty that the Conference League gives us. And I'll be supporting the English teams, and like you say, they've got a very strong chance on neutral territory to lift certainly 2 of the 3 trophies. Less sure on the Champions League final, but in a one-off knockout game against a very resolute Arsenal side, you'd be a brave man to back against them, I think, despite what I've said in past weeks.
Yeah. Well, we are brave men, sometimes foolish, but I'm sure we'll cover the Champions League final in more detail on the week prior pod. But just to finish this week, playoffs are still ongoing, obviously in the EFL. League One, League Two, the first legs have been played. We're going to get the second legs over the next 2 or 3 days. But the Championship playoff final is now set. We have Southampton against Hull.
Well,
we think we have Southampton against Hull. Let me revise that. For anyone that's not up to speed or on the pulse with this story, Southampton have been sort of charged for spying on Middlesbrough in the build-up. Now, that might sound a bit farcical, but you might remember this has actually happened years ago with Leeds under Marcelo Bielsa's reign. And because of that particular incident, the English FA brought a ruling against spying, and we've never seen anybody punished by this rule before. So all options, to quote the EFL, are on the table, including kicking Southampton out of the playoffs. I personally think that would be a bold move.
I think it'd be bold, but I think if they want to make an example and stop teams ever doing it again, I think it might have to be the option that they take.
It's going to be interesting. So just to be clear, as it stands, we've got Southampton and Hull contesting the Championship playoff final at Wembley, but there is that asterisk still hanging over Southampton until we know what the punishment is. And I believe Middlesbrough players are actually going to continue training in the Hull.
Middlesbrough back in the market as well, haven't they?
So they obviously think they've got a little bit of a sniff. So it's an interesting one. If we just take it as it is, Felix, and say that it is Southampton and Hull, Saints are obviously going to be very worthy favourites. I'd love to hear what you think about Hull, because they are the stat man's anomaly this season, aren't they? It's like the XP has been dreadful. Every week there's a conversation rated on social media about whether Hull are good value because they're a massive price despite being in the playoff places. Yeah. And you'd think that would run out in a 2-legged tie against the team who finished third, but they actually won it quite well in the end. Do you dare write them off for this playoff?
No, I don't think. I've done it too many times this season. We have a great debate every Monday morning at work about Hull and how they've cost us more money, because I get it's a classic thing between like the average fan who looks at the table. This is not to disparage anyone, by the way, but like people who look at the table and go, "Oh, Hull are just a massive price every week. You've just got to keep backing them." And the people who know how these markets are priced and going, "Well, yeah, because the numbers that by and large, are way more predictive over the longer term, have them as being a relegation threatened side. And, you got to remember in a low scoring sport like football, even 46, 48 games is not a big sample for that stuff to cancel out. And look, they've got match winners, and I think that is the key with Hull. Bellumi, Joe Gelhardt, Ollie McBurney, and to a lesser extent, Joseph and Millar. That's 5 players who can turn a game, who are really, really effective in that system on the counter-attack at breaks. I think the XG does underrate some of the chances that they generate a little bit. Panda has had an absolutely incredible season in goal as well. They're one of the few teams that are like overperforming massively at both ends. Usually one team does it at one or the other, but the forwards and Panda in goal have managed to do it at both ends, and that's just created this like super force. And I didn't think Saints were particularly impressive last night in the second leg against Middlesbrough. Obviously, the goal that won it was a bit of an anomaly, and they probably could have been out of sight in that first leg. And I would actually fancy Borough a little bit more against this Hull side. I think they could cope. I think Saints will look to dominate the game, and that's where Hull thrive, is in transition and on the counters. Whereas I think Borough would have tried to box clever and tried to match them at their own game and let them have a bit more of the ball, which I don't think Eke and Saints are going to do. So I wouldn't be writing them off. I think the prices are very fair. The goal line's very low, which is understandable given we just tend to get 1-0s in playoff finals. But I don't know if this is possibly a matchup that, you say this every year, but I do think this is a matchup that could change that fortune, if you get what I'm saying. At the minute, it's no bet. I want to see how the market develops, but certainly I can't be back in Southampton at odds on in 90 minutes to get the job done.
No. I credit to Hull, but there was a big part of me just like watching them over the last few months thinking, how would this team do in the Premier League? I'm not sure how they're even doing it in the Championship. But like you say, they've got game changers, and what we can learn from the past is that sometimes a team that goes up through the playoffs in the Premier League actually has a little bit more of a surprise factor with a bit of recruitment. Look at Sunderland this season. I mean, they're massive favourites to go straight back down. So never say never, but it promises to be an interesting matchup nevertheless. Well, plenty more we could be talking about, including the World Cup, which is our podcast theme at the moment here on the Odds Now YouTube channel. If you're not already watching, myself and Felix are taking a 6-part look ahead to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which is coming around the corner rapidly now. The first 3 episodes are already live on the YouTube channel. The 4th episode will be coming your way on Friday. Really enjoying filming that, Felix. And this week it's goal scorer, isn't it? So we'll be diving into the goal scorer markets.
We will, and I think it's a very open-looking market, given the extra games, given some of the rank outsiders in the group stages. I think there could be a couple of each-way shocks, certainly.
Okay, well, looking forward to that one. And if you wanna catch that, then make sure you subscribe to the Odds Now YouTube channel. Obviously, you'll get a notification every time we upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and cheers for chatting to us, Felix. We'll see you next week.
See you later.
Cheers, man. Oh, it's a pleasure talking to Felix. And if you want something to listen to after this podcast, why not stay with Odds Now and check out our World Cup betting mini-series. Me and Felix are filming a 6-part series looking ahead to this summer's FIFA World Cup, which is only a month or so away now. And we're already halfway through. We've looked at the outright market. We've looked at group betting, the stage of elimination betting. And on this Friday's latest episode, we'll be delving into the goal scorer markets. Yes, top goal scorer, top team goal scorer, and other varieties of angles there. So if you want to get in the mood for some World Cup action, head over to the Odds Now YouTube channel, click on our World Cup playlist, which should be showing at the top of your screen right now, and you'll find all the episodes there. And as always, we end the pod with a bit of a roundup of other sports. Now, darts is obviously my specialist area, for those who are regular viewers will know, but we should just also give a nod first to the world of golf, where it is major championship week at the US PGA Championship. It's probably the least prestigious of the 4 majors, if we're being honest, but still a major nonetheless. So a little nod to it at Aronimink. Scotty Scheffler, as always, a strong favourite. He's been runner-up in his last 3 starts. He's going to go off around the 5-1 mark for this. Rory McIlroy at 10s. Cam Young, a man banging form at 14s, and then it's sort of 16s for a host of players, the usual suspects really: Chaufflet, Rahm, Aberg looking for his first major, DeChambeau, Tommy Fleetwood's in there, Matt Fitzpatrick in fantastic form. So anyone that bets golf will have a good feel of how this market is looking. Without going into super depth in it, I would just say that there's a strong trend for American winners here. I think the last 10 winners have all been US based. So it's definitely a major that lends itself to Americans in recent times. Of those at the prices, I would lean towards Cam Young. Every time I'm watching him at the minute, he just looks like a player that can make that step towards the true elite of the game, the McIlroys and the Rams and the Schefflers. And I think that he trends extremely well. And if I was looking for a casual flutter each way, then Cam Young would probably be that selection. But as always, we watch with intrigue, and I look forward to following along across the 4 days. It runs from Thursday to Sunday. Let us know if you're backing anyone for the PGA Championship in the comments. Now, it's not been a particularly remarkable week in the world of darts, but there has been a couple of Players' Championship events going on, and I just thought they were worth a little look. Tuesday, the top line was Michael van Gerwen coming out on top with some remarkable averages. The best we've seen from MVG in a long time, it has to be said. And the day was crowned by his semi-final win over Martin Schindler. He beat him 7-0 with a 122 average, which is borderline world record territory. And yeah, it's great to see MVG playing so well, obviously. My issue with MVG, as I think for most people now, is at this stage of his career, it's very hard to trust him to back it up. And that kind of rang true on Wednesday when he went out in round one, the next day averaging 91 to Joe Hunt. So shall we get super excited about MVG? Is this like a turning point in his career once again? Probably not. But it is a timely reminder that he does still have it in the locker. Maybe just not as consistently as he once did, for sure. But it was great to see him playing so well. And he beat Dirk van Dijvenbode in the final there. Also great to see Dirk continuing to play well. He's having quite a good year under the radar. But we all know about Dirk's flaws when it comes to pressure moments in big TV events. So probably nothing too remarkable to take out of Tuesday's event, where the cream certainly rose to the top, in my opinion. On Wednesday, it was a little more intriguing, actually. The top half of the draw in particular certainly opened up. We had the likes of Ian White, Callum Goffin, some really rogue names making it into the quarterfinal and semi-final stage. However, in the end, it was a final between Johnny Clayton and Andrew Gilding. And it was Andrew Gilding who remarkably took his first ever Pro Tour title. That's quite amazing to think when you think of how long Gilding has been knocking around in these floor events and actually playing really well in them. He's made 3 finals previously and lost them all, but he well had the beating of Clayton here, beating him 8-3 in the final. From a personal perspective, it was a painful day. I had Nico Springer each way at 125 to 1. He did get into the places, but lost his semi-final 7-6 to Johnny Clayton. He was sat on tops, and Johnny Clayton took out a 102 finish to win it, starting with a single 5. And then going treble 19 tops. So ultimate pain for me. Springer also went 3-0 up and missed darts for 4-0. So it was a tough watch, but you shouldn't sniff at 33 to 1 places. In terms of the world of darts going forward, we've got more Players' Championship action next week. The Premier League is obviously very close to a conclusion. Now we have 2 weeks of league action left, and then we'll roll on to finals night at the O2 at the end of the month. It's not a competition I have a great love for, I'll be honest, but nevertheless, finals night always entertaining and high quality affair. Johnny Clayton and Luke Littler assured of their places there. Look like they'll be joined by Gerwyn Price and one other. It might be Michael van Gerwen or Luke Humphreys. You wouldn't entirely rule out Jan van Veen, while Stephen Bunting and Josh Rock are at the miracles required stage. So I'm sure we'll cover that in more detail, certainly next week when the last week of league fixtures will have a lot riding on it. But in terms of this week in Birmingham, can't say there's anything massively standing out in terms of appeal. As I said, plenty of Players' Championship action to continue rolling along. We have a European tour, not this weekend, but next weekend. And looking into June, we have the World Cup of Darts, which is one of my favourite tournaments on a personal level. And I will be doing an in-depth preview of that tournament here on the Odds Now YouTube channel. It'll be just before the Football World Cup gets underway as well. So World Cup fever will be well and truly taking over my house at that period. Okay, well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Betting Breakdown podcast. Let us know your biggest fancies for the upcoming weekend in the comment section below. If you haven't already, please do consider giving this video a quick thumb up and hitting subscribe. It really helps odds now grow. I'll be back again on Friday with Felix Morson-Pate for the latest episode of our World Cup betting preview pod, and the Betting Breakdown will return this time next week. Have a good week, good luck with your bets, and I'll see you again very soon.